Hey everyone, it's the Pocket Moggers. How you doing today? Hope things are going well and you're having a nice weekend. It is Saturday, the 16th of May, 2026, when I record this. So if this gets released on a weekday, I apologize. I hope your week is going well instead. I just got the time to finish Final Fantasy 16. It's been out for a minute, obviously, but I've been busy. But now that I have finished it, I have officially played every mainline Final Fantasy game. I haven't beaten all of them. I will explain which ones I haven't beaten and why. But I figured I'd rank all of the mainline ones since I have at least a taste for every single one of them. I will not give a number grading to the ones that I did not finish. I don't think that's fair. But the ones that I did finish will have a ranking out of 10. If you like what you heard and are a Final Fantasy fan, please leave a comment below telling me which one's your favorite and why. Um, Also, if you like the content in general, I've got other videos about things like Dragon Ball and One Piece and Pokemon and, well, gosh, just really just about anything nerdy that comes to mind that piques my interest. So please take a look at my channel. There's plenty of other things to look at. Smash Brothers 2, Cloud and Sephiroth, and even Sora's Final Fantasy adjacent. They're all in Smash. So I enjoy those. I'm going to do some videos about Kingdom Hearts in the future as well as Final Fantasy in the future. So look forward to some more stuff. With all that out of the way, let's get started, shall we? Okay, so the first Final Fantasy is a really, really cool story to me. It's very simple, but I do like all of the elements that are featured in it. I have a lot of reverence for stuff in the first Final Fantasy that has, been reinterpreted in other games and referenced or even completely turned on its head like some of the stuff in Dissidia was. I think that's really cool. As a product on its own, especially the original release of this game. There's obviously a lot to be desired by today's standards. The plot is one of those elements. It's very much a D&D at home kind of plot, but there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not really anything that stands out, especially at the time. But it's still good, and the world that it's building is still fleshed out. Not to the level that I'd like for it to be, but it's still good. Um, the glitches and especially again in the original release, the slow gameplay kind of hamper things. Make it a little hard to get into it, especially again since there's not anything transformative going on from a plot or character level. But the job system's self-explanatory and easy to understand. It's incorporated into the game well. It's fun to figure out what kind of jobs do what and what characters you'd like to have. The Red Mage is my favorite class in all of Final Fantasy, and part of that comes back to using him in this game where he's just completely broken, at least in the original release, right? With that being said, though, I highly recommend that people play the Dawn of Souls remake or one of the myriad ports of the game that have been released since the original release, because they all do everything better than the original game does. It was fun to see Link's grave in I can't remember the name of the town, but in the town in Final Fantasy One, I got a chuckle out of that. Yeah, I'm gonna give the game a 6 out of 10. It's good, but it's not great, and I do think even at the time it could have been done a little bit better. But I'm not here to dunk on them or anything. I know that Final Fantasy kind of saved SquareSoft from collapse and ruin. And it's obvious to see why that's the case. It's a really strong game. So, Final Fantasy II is one of the stinkers for me. Um, I do enjoy the greater emphasis on character and plot that's brought in here. I like the character Minwu a lot. I like Leon's arc in the game. It's fun to see a hero turned villain character who does the usual meet up with everybody and learn about what's happened since he's been gone and how the Empire has wronged him. And then, you all get together and you stop the bad guy, and then Leon's still evil and just leaves. I like that. I think that's a cool thing, a fun setup for a future event maybe. But that's, I mean, oh, I like the music too, parts of the world are cool, but man, it just really falls apart, you know. Um, the password system and all that stuff sucks. It's just not fun, you know. I'm sure there's somebody out there who champions it, and good for you, but for me it was just unbearably boring and pointless. Didn't really see why one would even want to do that, what the engaging part of that could even be. Um, there are some glitches, not as bad as the first game, but there are some glitches in here too. Uh, the game is still slow. It's better than the first one, but it's still slow. There's some leveling issues in some places that completely caught me, by surprise. Didn't like that too much. I just, everything besides the game part of it is serviceable, but the game itself is just a slog. I just don't have any fun playing Final Fantasy II. I do, once again, recommend if you're going to, looking for the Dawn of Souls version or a later edition. They have added a whole bunch of things that, make everything feel a little more alive in the world, a little more thought out, but it's not changing Final Fantasy II any. It's just not fun, in my personal opinion. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. That's going to be the lowest one in the ranking. If you're a defendant of Final Fantasy II, let me know why in the comments, please. I'd love to hear it. I don't hate any of these games, as I mentioned. Well, maybe I didn't mention it before. I can't remember. I had to cut and re-record something. But in one of the recordings, I mentioned I don't hate any of these, and it's true. I don't. I feel very strongly about some of the entries in this series. So, anyway, let's move on. So, if one word could be used to describe Final Fantasy III, I think that the word that I would pick to describe it is dichotomy. Because Final Fantasy III has so much wrong with it, but also so much right with it. And I think it ultimately becomes a better product. It's more good than bad, but I don't think it's by much. Um, so, I really don't care for cookie cutter, like, we don't talk protagonists that are the heroes because they're the heroes and that's what the heroes do. So that's a big minus against the original release. The better Nintendo DS release gave them personalities and names and things, and that is good, but I'm trying to do the original releases of the product here. So I'm going to take that as a little bit away from them. The plot here is just, I don't know, it kind of bounces all over the place and doesn't really seem to know where it wants to end. A lot of things in this game I feel happen just for the sake of happening and not necessarily because they, feel rewarding or felt like something that the player could actually guess or would want to guess from it. You know what I mean? It's all over the place. Um, and because of that, there are key elements of it that are frustrating to deal with on a gameplay level as well. Like, for example, if you aren't aware that you have to recruit some allies to help you for the final boss, you just lose. You can't win. There are a couple of fights like that in the game where you just can't win, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But this game isn't good at telling you when those fights are going to happen, or give you a little bit of I don't know, a little bit of a tonal hint to let you know, hey, maybe you can't win this fight. This game's not very good at that. So that is very confusing. Excuse me, got the hiccups again, and frustrating. There's once again a very high enemy encounter rate too. I don't know. It just all really makes for a bad time, or I would say it would, but the game itself at a core level is fun. Leveling up your jobs and customizing them, learning different techniques from them is a really cool and fun system. It's much more customizable and expansive than it was in the first game. Your character being able to switch jobs instead of your character being a job is nice, although sometimes I think that doesn't work in the favor of these games. I'll get into that a little later with Final Fantasy V. But it's good, and I really do like the NPC characters in this game. The supporting characters are good too, despite my criticisms about the story and the plot. And the music. This is, in my opinion, when the music really starts to get good for the franchise. So I'm gonna give it a 6.5 out of 10. It's just, I don't know. It is the on the better end of the good but not great ones, in my opinion. Hey, so I didn't want to take away from Final Fantasy V's chance to shine by bringing up my goof after this slide, but I just realized while I was doing my editing and stuff that I forgot to mention what score I would give this game. So Final Fantasy score gets an 8 out of 10. It's great. One of my favorites in the whole franchise. So Final Fantasy IV here is the first entry in the series that I really love. The game's got a lot of heart to it and personality to it in nearly every facet. I really think it's great. I enjoy the world in it. The characters and the people in it are really great. There's a lot of unique overworlds to explore, which is something I really enjoy. Just going to radically different environments. I don't really want to spoil too much for those who haven't tried any of these games. Um, so I'm not going to say too terribly much about it, other than it's great. I like the villains in this game, even though I do think the plot kind of just goes south towards the end. It feels like it has a really good hold on its dynamics and how it should function for the beginning and middle. And then at the end, I don't know, we take it too far. I think it becomes too fantastical, and there's too much to it that makes it, how do I say this? It makes the story less engaging for me, less believable for me. Some of our characters have to become the special. You know what I mean? You have this that you didn't know about, and this is your parentage, and this is, and I don't know. I didn't need that in the game to make it work. I actually liked the fact that it appeared most of the protagonists that we had uh, were in the positions that they were in their governments and in their things because they were skilled. They just knew what they were doing. I think that works better. But that being said, it's really not much of a big minus for me in this game since the other parts are handled so solidly. Um, I really enjoy all of the hidden stuff in this game that you can find. I didn't write this down, I mentioned the DS version in what I wrote down. But actually, I think you should play the GBA version of it because it gives you more dungeons and it allows you to switch characters in and out freely. There's a thing in a lot of early RPGs where characters are used to help you get to places and then you never use them again. They help you for that part of the story and they're gone. Bye bye. And this game actually goes out of its way to, for the last part of it, let you use those characters again. And I think that's awesome. I wish more ports of these games did stuff like that. And I fully encourage you to try one of the ports of this game. The DS version is really good too. Please don't mistake me. I just think that the benefits of the GBA port make it a little better. So I forgot to mention it in the last slide, but I think starting with number 4, we enter the series golden era, and I think it goes on for the next about 6 or 7 games. So this is kind of where I think the teams were just at the top of their game and had the most amount of control with what was going on, and the most amount of freedom for how they wanted to handle these games. There's a lot in this time that feels more personal than earlier and later entries do, less corporate. And I really appreciate this era because it seems like the creatives were given control. Anyway, let's go on to Final Fantasy V. This one's great. I really do enjoy the concept of the interdimensional void and going to different worlds, different realities, eventually, having all of these different worlds and different characters come together and clash in different ways is a really fun idea. The job system is perfect. I just love it in this game, and I love that each of the characters has unique sprites for each of the different jobs that they have. It's really cool to see. Speaking of, despite this being a job-based game, the characters are more fleshed out. They have more personality. They have a bigger role in the story. They are tied in with other NPCs in the game, and stuff like that. Well, not other NPCs, but with the NPCs in the game, and stuff like that. It's great. Geluf, I believe that's how his name is said. If it's not, forgive me. Is one of my favorite mentor figures in the whole series. I enjoy Ferris a lot too. She's a great character. I can't recommend Final Fantasy V enough in that regard. My favorite character in all of Final Fantasy, Gilgamesh, comes from Final Fantasy V. Right? So it's great. But I do think that they could restructure this a little bit. Maybe having a concrete job and a concrete, I'm the guy who does this, or I'm the girl who does this, or I'm the whatever that does whatever, helps people's roles a little bit when it comes to structuring of the story and things like that. I don't want to get too involved in anything, but there is a point where a character has to take on a medic role for a particular reason and use a wide variety of spells and to try to save someone. And I never assigned that character those traits or that role. And so it felt a little odd, a little off, because in my head canon, with all of the customization they had given me, that wasn't the role I gave to the character, right? Um, So I just kind of think that these jobs that are given to these characters in every one of the games, you might not always see the jobs, but the characters are always given jobs in the design phase, right? I think they help with a little more than just simply how you play the character. And I do think that that might be one of the big weaknesses of the early job class games. But with all of that out of the way, I do have to say, grand total, I'm giving this a 7.8 out of 10. It's not quite as good as number 4 to me, but it is still very good. And the music, again, is also just phenomenal. Fantastic. Final Fantasy VI is perhaps the best send off that a 2D transitioning into 3D series gets. It's amazing. It really is. The characters in here are so well done. The mood throughout the whole game is captured perfectly. The sound is just perfect. You know, like this may be the best soundtrack. I don't personally think so, but I understand the argument for why it might be. Um, I mean, the world is incredibly realized, and the interactions with the characters just really hits home in this one. There's a pervasive melancholy in this game that doesn't feel, it's not mopey. It just feels a little, it's sad, and I think that's appropriate, especially from time to time. The last 4 Final Fantasies, 2 is a little more dour than 1 and 3 and 4, but 1, 3, 4, 5. I said 4. The last 5 Final Fantasy games, and especially 1, 3, 4, and 5, are very upbeat in general. And 6 is a nice shift in another direction. I didn't get to write everything I want in here because I didn't want the text to be completely illegible, but Kefka Palazzo is a great villain. We need more bad guys like that in Final Fantasy. I like the fact that he's a weak schlub when you first run into him, and that he gains power with you. His direct interactions with most of the cast really help with this one too. Um, there are some characters that I feel needed a little more. I would have liked to have known a little more about the Emperor of the Gestalian Empire, and General Leo would have been nice to have a little more time with, but in general, things are handled really well there. Gameplay is just as good as the last 2, if not better. They do a better job of telegraphing things to you in this game when enemies have weak points that can be revealed. They'll even shift sprites to let you know, okay, this enemy can be hurt here now and stuff like it's. I just love it. It's fantastic. It's not my personal favorite, but in particular, its ending is one of my favorites. Might be number 1, probably not, probably number 2, but might end up taking number 1 for the endings in the franchise. But again, it's just not the one for me. I just vibe harder with some of the other ones, but I do love it. Please check this one out. If you check none of the other ones out, check this one out. And this one's going to have an 8.5 out of 10 for me. Okay, so everyone and their mom knows about this one. There's really not much I can say that hasn't been said about this one. This is one of my personal favorites. This is my favorite soundtrack from the whole franchise. I just love just about every single song in it. I like the characters. Barrett Wallace needed at least one, probably several pass throughs again in the editing room. But the core character there is very strong, and I still like quite a bit. Um, there are some party members that I feel are a little weaker than others, maybe need a little more. I understand why they did what they did with the remake, but I am mad that they took a lot of the negativity out of Sid's character. I feel it's very important to his identity. And I hope they bring it back in some way because I played Remake Part 2, what was it called? Rebirth. And I was just like, who in the hell is this? I don't know who this character is. This isn't Sid. This is just some weirdo simp who just shows up out of nowhere and wants to help Aerith, you know? And it felt it felt yucky, you know. It felt like a betrayal of the character, you know. I don't approve of what Sid does in the original game, but I don't know. Your characters who are bad that move from bad to good need to start off bad. You know what I mean? We need that stuff in there so that we can watch them grow and change. Anyway, off of that horse, on to another one. Gameplay is great here. You know, there's translation errors and misunderstandings on developers' parts and stuff that hold some things back in this one. But I don't think it's half as bad as it is in some of the other ones that I'm going to mention problems for. Um, and I I do kind of wish that Yuffie and Vincent and well, really Sid got a little more to do in the main game. I mean, Sid gets his time, but I still wish he had a little bit more to do. Maybe 13. Yeah, Red 13 needs some more too. I just wish they got more to do with the game. It feels just like with 6, with some of the hidden party members for 6 that you can find. It just feels a little, I don't know, a little lazy. Feels like there should have been a way to incorporate them a little more. I know Yuffie gets some big stuff in her home kingdom. I won't talk too much about that, but it feels too little too late, especially given how optional it is. But again, this is the one. If you're gonna play one, I recommend you play 6 because somebody else is gonna recommend that you play 7. But if you really want to try one, try 7. Although, you know, just like with all the other ones, although I must say 4, 5, and 6 have less of a problem with this than 7 does, I think, because of just, you know, the way the 2D had been mastered by that point in 4, 5, and 6 compared to 7. 7's an early 3D video game, so it looks kind of ugly. It can play rough at times, but it is enjoyable. I gave this game a 9 out of 10. What do you think? Let me know below. So Final Fantasy VIII is a bit of a controversial entry for some fans, and to me, it's not hard to see why, at least on a surface level. The draw mechanic is confusing and frustrating when you don't understand what's going on. They push a whole bunch of mini games on you that nobody wants to play. Well, one in particular, Squall, especially at the early parts of the game, is insufferable. I really they needed to tone that down a lot a bit. Because I don't even know, even when I was a 12-year-old contrarian watching or playing the game, I hated him. He was just obnoxious. It's like, bro, you're not cool. Shut up. So I think that needed to be toned down a bit. I think some of the characters are a little too one-dimensional sometimes. Zell, in particular, sometimes can just be a little, dude, come on, what's going on? But you know, those things I think can be forgiven, but I do think that they are further compacted when you add in the really strange plot for this one. It's not that it's hard to follow, it's hard to comprehend. Sometimes you just look at what it's doing and you're like, okay, why did we do this fake out with like 3 different people for this event to happen? Why are these characters doing this? I don't know. It feels a little messier than 7. 7 felt a little more put together. But there are particular character moments that I feel are stronger than 7's are. And we don't have to worry about Barrett anymore being a minstrel show character. Right. So that's nice too. But yeah, there's definitely some things like the uh, secrets for this game, and some of the Guardian Force interactions and stuff that just don't. The package altogether feels a little too hurried and a little confusing. I don't think the game's bad by any means, but it definitely doesn't hit me the way 7 did. The materia system was just better all around. And, I'm sorry if that offends somebody. I don't mean to, but it just was. It was more accessible. It was easier to understand. It had better results. So all of that together, you go from something like 7 to something like this, you're going to get people who have a little bit of backlash, right? But for me, it's an 8.5 out of 10. What do you all think? Final Fantasy IX is really special to me. Some of the first stuff I looked up on the internet was Final Fantasy IX related stuff, looking up how to get Ozma and do all that stuff. There weren't as many answers back then as there were today, that's for sure. This is the last game made by Hironobu Sakaguchi, who created Final Fantasy, along with other people, of course. And there's a persistent melancholy in this game. It contrasts with the bright medieval characters and the warm colors of a lot of places, and just the fun medieval fantasy angle that is being used. It creates juxtaposition that really stands out and makes the game memorable. The game isn't as sad as Final Fantasy VI, but there is definitely some existentialism going on, some debates about life and finding yourself and stuff that I really appreciate from this game. I also do appreciate the return to the medieval knights and kingdoms and castles and stuff. It was nice to take a break from that for a bit, but it was cool to see it come back in a big way and really make an impact. Some of my favorite Final Fantasy characters come from Final Fantasy IX. I really like Steiner. I like Vivi. I like Freya. I like Zidane too, and Dagger too. I really do like just about everybody. I think Amarant is a big, I don't know, just a big minus. I don't know that the character really contributes much to it. There are some cool, interactions with him. He has some great scenes, but I don't know that he's necessary. But other than that, I really do like the cast. I think it's really well rounded. Gameplay's still as solid as it was before. You've still got your challenges. I just mentioned Ozma, which is the game's secret boss. There's a whole thing involving that you have to do with some friendly enemies. You got some chocobo stuff. There's even a really crazy quest for one of Steiner's weapons that you can do. But none of it feels I don't know. It doesn't feel as exhausting as it did in Final Fantasy VIII or even sometimes in 7. Um, it's the whole game is very action packed, but it does it in a kind of lax way. I really don't know how to describe it adequately, but everything here is done incredibly well, even if it's not the top of my list. I'm going to give it an 8.8 out of 10. Some of the stuff feels a little excessive, and I do think that some aspects of the plot, some characters and things could have been fleshed out a little bit more and made it a little more enjoyable. There's a character named Kuja. I don't want to get too much into Kuja, but I do think that we should have learned a little more about Kuja before everything starts in the game. I think the game would have benefited immensely from that. But anyway, with that being said, that's my thoughts on Final Fantasy IX. So Final Fantasy X is I really do like it. But I think that me and many, many people in my generation were kind of caught up in all the new features and the just explosion of 3D animation and things along those lines that happened at the very beginning of the 21st century. And the spectacle kind of overtook the core things about these games that make them work. And I think this is kind of where the golden age comes to an end because Final Fantasy really starts to cut corners on things here in ways that I don't really care for. I know that sometimes things have to be reworked or reinterpreted in order to make something work as effectively as possible, but this doesn't really feel like that. This feels more like we've been working on this for so long. Not in Ten's case, but in later games' case, we've been working on this for so long that we've just got to put an end to it. So let's just end it. You know, this is the last one that feels like, at least to an extent, things were, finalized before the production began. Um, I the characters in this game are such a hit and miss style. I really do like most of them, but I find that they're all shallow in ways that I don't find to be true for other Final Fantasy games. I find myself constantly wanting more from Spira, despite really enjoying the world of Spira and the cultures and everything. There's not enough here. I don't know how to explain it. The world doesn't feel as alive as some of the earlier ones have. Um, there's there's a lot of really cool things to do in Spira. There's great side quests with a lot of cool stuff, especially in the later editions of the game with all the added bosses and things. But none of it feels connected. I don't get why I'm doing some of this stuff. Some of this stuff just feels like you're doing it because the PlayStation 2 can let you do it now. Like dodging lightning bolts on the Thunder Plains, for example. Why? Yeah, I don't, it's cool, but why? There's a lot of that in Final Fantasy X that just feels like playing around with tech, and that's a good thing because it means that it's helping the developers come together to create something that can be more mechanically sound the next time. Kingdom Hearts 1 has a lot of that in it too, and I don't necessarily think it's bad. I just think it leads to a less strong title because sometimes you're just doing stuff that doesn't really contribute to the overall feel of the game or the plot. Um, but yeah, in regards to things like that, you can tell we need a Final Fantasy for the PlayStation 2. Get this game out was happening, even though so much of it feels finished. This is the first one where you notice it, and I think that a little later down the line, you really start to see how bad it gets in that regard. But I still really do enjoy a lot here. I like the narrative. I wish it was a little stronger. I wish there was a little more going on in it. I wish there was a little more focus on the Al Bhed and how they're being treated, and a little more about Jackton, Orin, and Braska and what they were doing. And I wish we got a little more about Seymour to understand him a little better. It's just it's peppered in, and I wish it was all over the place. I wish they went heavy on the sauce instead of just sprinkling it, right? Um, but the turn-based mechanics are actually really great. I really do enjoy that. I've always wanted a 10 sequel that did some things more like, what is now things like Expedition 33, but when I was thinking about it was stuff like Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, where they implemented a little more mechanics into it, but kept the solid turn-based system going on. But with all of that said, I'm going to give the game a 7.5 out of 10. I would very briefly like to bring up the English voices. I hear people kind of lambasting them a lot, and I do understand why. I do have to mention that one Tidus scene, though, and Yuna scene, that's supposed to be bad. Some people don't seem to know that, so for those of you who are unaware, he's supposed to be doing a hokey, terrible rendition of that laugh. But with that, still, even with that in there is a lot of questionable what's the word I'm looking for? Questionable portrayals. There we go. There's a good word for it. In there sometimes. And I think that's more just like a lack of understanding of the mechanics of the world in ways that maybe they should have been a little more versed in by the game team beforehand. Because the voice cast is incredible. We got people like John DiMaggio in there, James Arnold Taylor, right? These people have proven themselves, right? So I can't in good faith believe that it was the actors themselves. It must have been some weird barrier that we just don't know about. But anyway, that's what I think of Final Fantasy X. What about you? How do you feel about this one? So this one's going to be a little shorter than the other ones because I don't really have too terribly much to say about Final Fantasy XI. Not because I didn't like it. I actually did enjoy playing this with my friends on the PlayStation 2 back in the day. I was a red mage, as I mentioned before. It's my favorite class in the game, and I was rewarded for that in this version of the game. But I never got to the expansions, and as I started to play it more and more, I started playing it more and more on my own, and whenever I played it on my own, I realized I just wasn't having fun. You know, MMOs and I don't really click. I thought we would for sure because I love regular RPGs in games, but MMOs really feel like doing household chores instead of playing a video game. I feel like Tom Sawyer tricked me into painting the fence while he goes and plays a real game whenever I play MMOs. And I'm sorry to MMORPG fans, it is not me trying to insult you personally, and it is not from a lack of trying that I have this opinion. I played World of Warcraft, I played Final Fantasy XI, I played a very little bit of 14, we'll get into that later. I played Star Wars The Old Republic, I played DC Universe Online. Go on. There are several that I have tried, and none of them have clicked with me. The genre just doesn't work for me. So I'm not going to score this one because it doesn't feel fair, even though I admit I had a good time. And from a lore and world building perspective, what I saw was good. My personal bias, because of my experiences, taints my scoring ability for this one. So I'm just not going to do it. If you had good times with Final Fantasy XI, let me know down below because it really was a great game. I had a good time with it. So when Final Fantasy XII came out, initially I was very nonplussed about it. I just didn't like the combat. I hated the characters. Even though I had already experienced the world of Ivalice in Final Fantasy Tactics, I wasn't vibing with the Ivalice that we got here, you know? So I didn't play it at first. But I went back a few years later, and I have to admit, I really enjoyed it. It's very good. There are issues here. Some of the characters really rub me the wrong way. Vaughn is just insufferable. Penelo is just as bad. I don't understand why Fran is there. Like, just for people to ogle something, I don't know. It feels gross, which is a pity because outside of that, I like Balthier. And I like why Balthier has Fran around, but Fran herself just contributes nothing. Um, I just I don't know. It's such a, just like with 10, it's a mixed bag. And the thing about this one, though, is I think it's a mixed bag more on the positive side of things. The gameplay is very well done. Chaining your skills and stuff is awesome. It's really satisfying. The implementation of your limits and your summons and stuff is very smooth and simple to understand. The world of Ivalice is so cool. The Arcadian judges are great villains. I wish Final Fantasy had more villains like them personally. The stuff with Bosch and Ash is great. I have heard that Bosch and Ash were supposed to be the original leads for this game at some point. I don't know if that's true for sure or not, but if it is, they really fumbled that one. I mean, y'all really crapped the bed on that one because Bosch and Ash are 10 times more compelling characters than your chosen leads. Also, androgynous, blonde, like city dweller. I didn't want to use the term urchin because that's so loaded, but that would be the term that would have been used at the time to describe somebody like that, right? We have that kind of a vibe from protagonists before. I wanted a protagonist like Bosch who wanted revenge. I wanted to see him, turn his thing around. We do get that later, fortunately, but it feels like a missed opportunity. Overall, though, I still think this game is an 8 out of 10. Oh, the music's fantastic too. This is my favorite particular incarnation of Gilgamesh that's in this game. Once again, John DiMaggio returns to Final Fantasy to kick another roll down the curb. Just completely stomp on it. He killed it. It's a great game. There are later editions of it that add a pseudo job system and bounty boards and stuff, and I would recommend you play those versions instead because there's a lot of fun references to older older games in the franchise in it, and rewarding skills that you can get, new weapons, things like that. But this game overall is an 8 out of 10 from me. What do you think? I know the joke's been done to death here, but we're here at Final Hallway 13. Man, this game just gets my goat, guys. I just don't get what they were thinking with this one. The characters are melodramatic and boring. They're constantly yelling at each other all the time. The world is confusing and not very well explained, and frankly not interesting because of those first two things that I brought up. The inability to return to places after a certain point in time is ridiculous. It's a JRPG, and specifically a JRPG in the 2010s, and y'all aren't willing to let people go back to the places they've already been to. You already programmed the places. You don't have to do anything. You literally just let the people walk around like they did before when they could go there. I don't know. Just, you know, this game feels so, like, I use the term rushed for 10 a little bit, but this one feels so rushed. Every part of this feels like, oh, we don't have time to deal with that. We got to get this one out. Yeah, Lightning's kind of a prick and she sucks, but we don't have time to deal with that. Don't worry about it. Yeah, Hope might be literally the worst character in Final Fantasy ever, but don't worry about it. We don't have time. How do Vanilla and Fang know each other? We'll kind of explain it, but we don't really have time to worry about it. Why can't you just go back to places? Well, there's no good reason for it. We just don't feel like you should be able to, because then we'd have to program that in time. There's not a lot to do towards the end of the game either. This is a stinker, guys. It's not Final Fantasy 2 bad, because Final Fantasy 2 is broken on a core gameplay mechanic level, and this game plays fine, but it just sucks in every other aspect. It's still Final Fantasy, it's still better than the majority of games out there, but I don't recommend this one. Just like with 2, if you're going to play it, fine. But I can't give this one my recommendation simply because there are so many better numbers in the series for you to check out instead. Having said that, it's still a 6.5 out of 10. Again, the game works. That is the most important thing here. I expect so much more from Square when it comes to the world and the characters and their relationships and what you can do in the game, and they kind of just failed on every level with this one. I hope we never get another title like this one again, because if we get another one of these, there's just no excuse for it anymore. That one will not get a 6.5 out of 10. That one will get probably a 3 or a 2. So this is another MMO. I'll explain my history with it real quick. Then I'll explain what I know people enjoy about it, and a little bit about its history and stuff. But my friend, he really wanted me to game with him, and I understand. I really do, because MMOs, like I mentioned with 11 while I was playing it, and I didn't have any fun. They're not fun by yourself. They're just not at all. So I tried. I tried to play Final Fantasy 11, and I got all the way up to level 10, and I started doing some stuff, all the way. But I'm just saying, it's still a grind to do stuff, and I just didn't feel it. I couldn't care less, y'all. So I just had to hop off. I said, hey, I'm sorry, but this just ain't for me. Um, I know from other people's conversations about it and what I've seen online that the original Final Fantasy XIV was so abysmally broken and boring and pointless that they literally had to get rid of the whole team and like reboot the whole universe and create a Realm Reborn for it to make it like tolerable. And I played a Realm Reborn, and that was my experience for a Realm Reborn. So God knows what the original Final Fantasy XIV was like. I will not grade this one, just like I didn't grade 11, because I never finished it, and I never played any expansions, and technically I never played the original game either. So I really can't. But I do want to shout out to Rubber Ross, wonderful YouTuber, who did an egg eating challenge on this game that I watched. That was pretty unique and fun. And I do have to say, I also enjoy all of the callbacks to other games. I know that Kefka and X-Death and Zeromus are all bosses in there. I know that Zeromus is a little different than the Zeromus from 4, but still cool to see them all kind of hanging out and having new life in this game. And I'd like to bring my friend on at some point and have him talk about 14 and what makes 14 work for people, because obviously it's massively successful, and I'm not here to dog on it. I don't have any personal connection to it any way, shape, or form. Let me know in the comments below what you like about 14, though. I'd really love to hear it. So 15 has a similar problem to 13, where I just couldn't connect with it. Just nothing about it spoke to me. I tried to. I finished the game, but I felt nothing even at the end. Just not at all. It had a solid beginning. I think it's a little cheesy, a little hokey, a little manipulative, since we don't really know these characters. And music and locale are doing a lot of work for it, but it is good, and I do like the relationship that Noctis has with his friends. It's just a pity that I don't like Noctis at all, and I don't really like any of his friends beyond a surface level. Like, as characters, I just don't click with any of them. and really found a lot of them pretty insufferable. I did enjoy the gameplay. It was a lot of fun, but it felt like this game was Final Cutscene 15 with so much talking. Sometimes it just didn't even feel like a game because I was just sitting around talking all the darn time. The last mission, when I played, was incredibly and unnecessarily rough. I have no idea what the thought process there was, but man, that sucked. Don't ever do that again, Square. Um, I don't understand the appeal of this series. I was completely totally like stone faced when Noctis showed up in Tekken 7. I was actually really bummed that a good Final Fantasy character didn't get into Tekken and have fun instead. And I really don't give a crap about this universe at all. They like this one again, gameplay wise, this one's even better than 13 was, right? So I'm not gonna give it a 6.5 out of 10. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10 because the game plays even better this time around. But the same problems persist, man. I don't know what's up with some people in modern Final Fantasy's writing people, but like characters appear to be an immense challenge for them. And I hope that they will get more people on board who have a little more experience with that. I don't mean to sound condescending, really, I don't. I'm talking out of a place of expertise. For those who are unaware, writing is my area of knowledge. I have a degree in writing. This is not me trying to dog on people unnecessarily. I really think they needed to take a couple more passes at these characters and work on them a little more. Because if you don't care about the characters, you don't care about what happens to the characters. And if you don't care about what happens to the characters, you don't care about the story. Right? It's really that simple. I also really implore the Square Enix people to stop giving Nomura chances to do Final Fantasy Versus 13 over again. He's gotten the chance for the original Versus 13, which ended up becoming Final Fantasy 15. He did it again in Kingdom Hearts 3 with this Virum Rex stuff, and now he's bringing it into Kingdom Hearts 4 as well. It has to die at some point. Maybe Kingdom Hearts 4 will prove me wrong, and the Versus 13 concept will just completely blow me away. I hope so, really, I do. But how many times does an idea get to go before you say, hey, maybe this just doesn't work? You know, that's all I'm saying. I hope I didn't ruffle too many people's feathers because I don't really hate the game. Like I said, I gave it a 7 out of 10. I feel very strongly about it because the trend is continuing with 13 here, and it was a trend that needed to end. Fortunately for us, the next entry does a better job at handling those things. Final Fantasy 16 is great. Once again, we're back in medieval times, and I'm a-okay with that. It's very clear by that theme return and the brutality of some of the scenes in this game, and the way the characters address each other, that Game of Thrones is having a little bit of an influence on this game, and I don't necessarily mind that in any way. I do kind of wish that they did a little more of it in some ways and a little less of it in other ways, and I'll get into that in a little bit here. But the futuristic and sci-fi elements that are revealed later on don't feel out of place because we have a solid foundation here. That's great. The combat's fun, although I do have to say I'm not the biggest fan of hit the enemies until they stagger and then hit them again with the same stuff, and you'll feel more accomplished accomplished for having attacked this boss's health twice to do one amount of damage. You know what I mean? I don't find the stagger systems rewarding in modern RPGs. They just don't do it for me. But that's neither here nor there. It's just one of those things. I will say 16 is one of the games that I feel actually did that system justice. It was engaging in the game, and I did enjoy it. I enjoyed the different play styles that all of your party members had and could use. That was cool. There's a fun amount of twists. I do think some of them go the way that some of the stuff in Final Fantasy VIII and Final Fantasy IV go, where it's like, I mean, okay, I guess. I don't know how this works because you really haven't explained this to me, and I don't know why I should care about this because you don't explain that to me. But it's never so bad that it feels like it's taking you out of things. It's just like, I do wish there was a little more put into it sometimes. There's a little bit of what I don't consider this like misleading in any way, but or at least on their part, but I was misled by my own stupid mind into thinking that all of the icons were going to be more of a focus, that this was going to be a game about all of the icons as characters and not just about one person and what that one person was doing. I wanted more of that kind of stuff from Game of Thrones in here, where we focused on each kingdom and their politics and their history and the reason behind these things, and we do get that stuff in the game, but not nearly enough. Sometimes some of the kingdoms and their leaders and stuff feel a little one-dimensional because they just don't. I personally don't feel there was enough development on them to make them feel anything but that. I don't know. I just kind of wish that stuff was focused on a little more. Having said that, as I mentioned with Final Fantasy XII with Bosch, I do like the fact that in 16 Clive is out for revenge, and we get a protagonist from Final Fantasy that's, I wouldn't call him rough around the edges, but just like he's not motivated by some sort of justice or righting some sort of wrong in the past or helping the people of the planet or something. It's just like, no, they killed my whole family. I hate them, right? Like we need to acknowledge that part of the world too, that conflict sometimes is driven by things just as simple as carnage, just completely and totally chaotic bloodshed for the sake of it. That does happen. That sometimes people in this world have their lives permanently changed by just sudden chaotic events completely out of their control. Final Fantasy II kind of did that with Firion and his cast and crew wanting revenge for the death of their family, but it doesn't really drive any of them, and the only character that it does drive is Leon, who is openly viewed as antagonistic throughout the whole game. And I'm not pro revenge, please don't get me wrong, but stories can have protagonists that are flawed in ways beyond failure. A lot of Final Fantasy protagonists are either just unassailably good people with no faults whatsoever, or they're motivated by grief like a superhero, and both of those are fine. But when we're at game number 16 in the mainline series, not to mention all the spin-offs and everything else that are going on, maybe it's time to have protagonists with a little bit more going on than just one of those two options. Maybe we should diversify a little bit. So I appreciated that, even though, once again, I really do wish we focused a little more on the world itself and less on the super epic plot to end the world. And, anyway. Having said that, I'm going to give the game a 7.8 out of 10. I just wish we got more of it, frankly. Hopefully, this universe will be brought back in some way at some point, and we will get more to see. With that out of the way, thank you all very much for your time. I appreciate you coming by and listening. Let me know how you'd rank these games down below, please. I'd love to hear from you. Like I said, we've got other videos here about different games and franchises and stuff. Feel free to check them out. Very quickly, before I end the video, I do need to mention I don't own Final Fantasy. I don't own Square Enix. I don't own any of the related properties, anything connected to it in any way, shape, or form. It ain't mine. I don't own it. This is fair use. I'm just using it for a fun little video ranking the stuff. It is transformative. All rights belong to their respective owners, of course. With that out of the way, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Let your family know that you love them in some way, shape, or form. Stay safe out there, and all the wonderful chaos that we have going on right now. That's just really helping everybody's mood, ain't it? Anyway, hope you all have a great one. See you in the next one. Bye.